continuing our discussion of how to practice for performance and how to play through a mistake or a slipped finger or mishap. This segment, I would like to talk about the distractions that can happen on the stage. And they can be anywhere from the setup, the lighting, the performer's clothes, their formal attire, or any myriad of things. So the first one I'd like to talk about is dealing with my mom, and she tells this hilarious story of when she was younger, and she was performing. I don't remember the setting, but she was in a pretty dressed up gown, and she was playing Claire de Lune, and I guess she'd started it and looked down, and there was a daddy long legs climbing up her dress. And oh, we've laughed about that our entire lives. And so my mother, who again is a fantastic pianist, she began trying to do this and get the daddy long legs off her dress. So rather than stop, she actually continued playing the piece with one hand, and the other hand she was trying to get it off. So she was successful in getting the daddy long legs off, and then she wasn't sure where it went. And so that's one of our wonderful, precious stories that we have that our mother has told us our entire life. So the show goes on no matter what happens. Another story, I'm going to tell two stories of my experiences when I was a college student. One was a good friend tried to help me be a little bit more in style in my performing attire, and he purchased a pair of really beautiful high heels for me for one of my recitals, my solo recital. And I don't remember the timeline. I just know that he was so excited, gave them to me. I remember though that for some reason I didn't think to practice in these beautiful shoes. And so because they were heels and I'm tall and don't normally wear heels, the entire recital that my leg felt it was at a different angle than normal. And so I always tell my own students, please practice in your formal attire, bring your shoes. We have performance class every Friday, and anybody who's preparing in the last few weeks before a recital, they bring their formal shoes, their dressed up shoes, and they put them on for class. And the younger students, I will say, what are they doing? I said, well, they're practicing in their shoes. Oh, and if a young man wears a suit, I suggest strongly that they practice in that suit, because sometimes suits don't have as much, give and take. So they need to make sure that everything is right where it needs to be. So that's something, and I learned that lesson way back. Certainly practicing your shoes that you're going to wear. So the best story I have about performance attire is at my senior recital. And my mother is also a wonderful seamstress, and she usually made a formal gown for each of my major performances. So coming up on the senior recital, I went shopping and found this beautiful, beautiful wine-colored material, and we picked out a pattern and all of that. And so she, of course, measured me and all that my family lived in California. I was up in Provo. And so she made the gown. Now, because she wasn't going to be seeing me very close to the performance when the gown was finished, she asked my sister, who was also a very talented seamstress, to do the hem and, do the finishing touches for the gown. And so we did. Everything was measured, and we were ready to go. And I was excited for this recital, my senior recital. And I was going to perform, or I did perform, Schubert's 4 Impromptus, Opus 142, the Mozart Sonata in B-flat major, K570, and then the Prokofiev Second Sonata. And I was studying with Dr. Paul Pollei, and we went through the whole thing and months and months and months, and worked and felt ready to go. And so there I am. All my friends are there, family's there. I walked out on the stage and sat down and began performing. And of course, the first piece were the 4 Schubert Impromptus, which takes about a half hour to perform. And partway through the first one, I started hearing some rustling of papers. So I thought somebody was being a little rude, with their program. So I couldn't figure out what in the world is going on. But I was playing, and I was prepared and worked so hard on not only the memory and the accuracy and the refinement and the musicality and interpretation, and the list goes on. So I was a little disconcerted while I was performing and kept hearing the sound. And at some point, a few minutes into the first impromptu, my belt popped and fell on my lap. And that's interesting. And of course, I'm performing, so I didn't have time to figure out what in the world is going on. And so, and I'll turn to the side, you probably can't see, but when you sit at the piano, and this is a little close right now, but we're not at a 90-degree angle, and so, of course, the angle is down just a little bit, and as I was performing, the belt was moving more and more down my leg. And so this is, talk about a distraction that was just amazing. So the belt kept inching its way down, and at some point it finally fell on the floor. And later on, I was so worried about all of this, but I can imagine my mother and family as they were watching me, listening to me perform, and yet watching this spectacle of this belt inching forward. And so it fell on the floor, and that was almost a relief, because then I didn't have the distraction of the belt moving. And I thought to myself, and I'm still playing. I'll just have the stage manager come back out and pick it up, and then we can figure out what to do there. Back in that day, and this is a lot of years ago, we would wear gowns with either a belt or cummerbund or something, and so the gown itself wasn't fitted, and so I worried about what that looked like. And so all of these distractions are coming up in my head. But again, once the belt fell on the floor, then I could kind of put that out of my mind. And so I finished. I played for a half hour and stood up and bowed, and applause from the audience. I walked off the stage, and they were still applauding. And I said to the stage manager, "Go get my belt." And he goes, "No, you need to go back out and bow again." And I thought, oh my goodness. So I walked out. They were still applauding, and walked out, and there was one of my professor's wife. His wife was on the stage picking up the belt, she was going to take it to me. So we kind of made the best of that moment. She walking up to the stage and me walking back out on the stage, and she handed it to me and I took it and held it up, and everybody of course chuckled, and that kind of helped me relax, and audiences of course love things like that, because when things happen out of the ordinary, it puts everyone at ease. So that was fun. And after the recital, Dr. Pollei said to me, he goes, "Well, you passed." And but he did say, "I would have loved to have a tape recorder for your thoughts during that whole ordeal." And I would have too, because I look back and I was just traumatized that it happened, and yet it's a great story to tell and a great story to be prepared for anything, because anything can go wrong. So enjoy that. The more prepared we are, obviously, when distractions happen, we can play through the distraction, or we can make the best of a distraction and enjoy the performance. Thank you.